This is Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets for Digital Marketing Success with Steffen Horst.
Welcome back to Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets to Marketing Success, the podcast where we dive into what is driving results in today's changing marketing landscape. I'm your host, Steffen Horst, and today we're exploring one of the most buzzed about and misunderstood shifts in our industry, AI versus search. What's really happening and what comes next? If you spend any time in a marketing Slack channel or scrolling through LinkedIn, you've heard it. AI is changing everything. But is this a revolution in how people discover information or just the rebranding of existing strategies under a shiny new name? To help us break it all down, I'm joined by two incredible guests. First, Lindsie Nelson, a marketing strategist who has led digital growth initiatives for both startups and global brands. She brings a sharp, real-world lens to how AI influences our thinking about content and customer experience. She is currently the head of SEO at Symphonic Digital. And joining her is Andreas Voniatis, a digital marketer with deep expertise in performance media, analytics, and the emerging role of AI in discovery. Andreas has been closely tracking how tools like ChatGPT and Google's AI overviews are changing the way users search and how brands can adapt. Andreas is the founder of the SEO agencies Artios. Together, we'll unpack what's really changed, what still matters, and how marketers can stay ahead in the age of AI-powered search. Before we get too deep into the tactics though, let's zoom out for a second. We keep hearing that AI is changing everything, but what does that actually mean in practice? Are we actually living through a search revolution or just another rebrand of old tactics?
I think there is a revolution, and thanks for that great question. There's already data out there by tools such as DemandSphere that have shown, that over 50% or up to 50% of searches now trigger an AI result on Google. Okay, I think AI is bringing a revolution. It's changing the way people are searching. For the last 25 years, we've been reduced to typing in a few keywords. Now people are typing longer sentences, sometimes an essay, such as the confidence in the AI technology to give a much more targeted, contextualized answer.
I just will add to that too. I think the biggest piece of what you said too is people are changing how they're using search, right? Like the words they're using, it's not broad term and then you get a little more specific and then you get a little more specific. People are having conversations with search, right? They're not tied to what Google has told us for years is the only way to find the information you need. I think that's the biggest shift here is not 100%. I mean, the technology is important, but it's really how people have changed their behavior online.
Absolutely. Technology will obviously influence the behavior, right? We're all a function of our environment. I think the other thing that's worth noting is that CTRs are down, despite what Google claims. CTRs are down. Even for those featured in the AI results, CTRs are down. Does that mean we're going to see OpenAI or ChatGPT or Perplexity overtake Google? I wouldn't be so sure about that. That there were statistics to show recently that Google is claiming to do 27 times the search volume compared to ChatGPT. And, it's not as if, although a Google search results page looks like what Yahoo used to, ironically, it's still, it has an answer, right? It's like, Google became the preeminent search engine and overtook Yahoo because its algorithm was that much better. But Google actually has a response to ChatGPT in the guise of Gemini.
Now, assuming we are in the middle of a shift, who's actually winning in this new AI-infused search and result pages? Is this change helping real users or just muddling the waters further?
I think it depends, right? So I think that Google getting more zero-click searches, right, where they're keeping people within their environment, helps Google, right? They're in it to make money. And I think that's why there has been such an aggressive shift away, where we are seeing such an adoption of things like ChatGPT or Perplexity, because it feels like Google's just in it for the money, and they're a business. I get it. But I think the humans want more of the information that they need, which is why there is this kind of shift away. I think even generationally, we'll see people that have had ChatGPT for more of their life, 10, 15 years from now, are going to go to those types of platforms more frequently than something that really forces them kind of into a bucket like Google kind of always has done.
I agree. I don't always like to agree because that can make life a bit boring, but I have to agree. I think it would be quite remiss not to mention that Google is the biggest affiliate marketing company in the world.
So are we saying basically that, the search behavior of the older generation, I don't want to call us old necessarily, but we grew up with this with search engines, right? They popped up when we were younger, and then we're used to kind of feeding information into a search bar, right? The people that are not working in advertising like us, are they more likely, and it is maybe an assumption, are they more likely to maintain that behavior versus, as you said, the people that grew up with AI, with these ChatGPT solutions, that they are more likely to use them to do their search? A little bit like social change. In the beginning, a lot of people were on Facebook, and that was the numbers of it. Then at some point, Snap came, and it kind of captured the younger audiences that just like the format more. Then TikTok came, and these videos were the new topic, and they pulled a part of that audience that previously was on Facebook or would have potentially go to Facebook. Is that a similar situation?
I think there is a similar situation. I don't think it's as clear cut though, because Google have a response. So they're still managing to keep a lot of their traffic. I think even for, I won't describe us as old, but Gen X or Gen Y generation, my daughter loves talking about how she's a Gen Z, and in a superior way, without saying she's superior. But I think even among our generation, people are mixing and matching their use of LLM apps or searches with Google, so I think it's not just shifting for the younger generation, it's shifting for our generation. I remember even as far back as 10 years ago, I noticed my daughter was playing with voice search, like it was a toy. So I think the shift has already happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I guess tying this back to day-to-day business, I think I hear a lot of B2B companies that sell to executives that say, like, we have to be on TikTok. It's like, well, your demographic is likely not making purchasing decisions from TikTok. And Google is still a place that people are going to find and validate information. So we also know that ChatGPT and AI overviews can be highly inaccurate. Okay. And there are issues with, their data and information. And so people are then using Google as a validation tool as well. So there's it's multifaceted, right? It's not just everybody's going to jump on board, because there's flaws. And then we also have to understand who we're talking to.
What's really funny, right, to your point, is that not only are humans or users using search results to ground, the truth of their results, so are LLMs, right? So much so that Google had to require the execution of JavaScript to help prevent giving that free grounding service to ChatGPT and other LLMs.
Yeah. Lindsie, I know that we recently had a conversation, I believe it was with a client, about should they go heavy on AI search, right? And focus on it. And I think, if I remember correctly, for that client, we decided it's probably a little bit early, but there could be a first mover advantage. Are there industries, guys, where AI search or the advancement of AI has a bigger impact compared to others?
I will say from what we're seeing across clients, I'm not seeing a particular industry that's like, there's all these studies of it's impacting, X, Y, and Z spaces more. I'm not seeing that. I think it's more of how people are using it, rather than individual industries. So like if you are rooted in providing high level content that doesn't give any human context or insights, it's literally just something that, AI overviews or ChatGPT can spit out real easy, then you're going to lose, right? If you're not providing human-centered context at this point, then you're going to lose, regardless of the industry. But that's kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, I think it's more to do with the nature of the query rather than the industry, because even if you're shopping for a consumer product or you're looking to procure a B2B solution, you naturally will do research on either, and that usually leads to a long form type query or prompt and a matching long form answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, and back to what you were saying, Stefan, I think the reason we pushed against we need to optimize only for LLMs is their site was wholly broken in a lot of ways. And so jumping into we need to be on ChatGPT when their site is not indexable is a massive problem, right? It's kind of this, we want to be all the way over there, but we don't have foundation. There is still foundation work that has to be done. And I think people are focused on the shiny thing, and we need to also root in what is still critical for any website and any consumer.
You're absolutely right. I mean, when you think about the rising energy costs to run an AI, the shortage of GPU semiconductor chips, again, to run an AI, it means that content on a website, in order to succeed in AI, needs to have all of the SEO basics in place. Mm-hmm. So, to succeed in AI, you have to be good at SEO as well.
Yeah.
Let's get a little closer to home now. What are your clients actually saying? Are they excited about AI, worried, or just overwhelmed? Andreas, you want to kick this off?
Yeah, I think there's a big mixture of excitement and fear. Like if you look at reports and the click-through rates, there's definitely a shift. Okay, despite increased visibility in the traditional search engine results, I think despite the tools that have been released, I don't think there's an agreed standard as to which tool provides a reliable data source on what your visibility looks like. And it's quite difficult when you're tracking your visibility in traditional search. You've got keywords to go on. You even get keyword intelligence from Google Search Console. But what do you have with an LLM? I mean, to have an answer, you need to have a question. But what are those prompts? We're not even getting that kind of intelligence. So there's that kind of fear in terms of, the click-through rates and the lack of visibility or analytics from, AI search. But on the flip side, it creates an opportunity, when one door closes, hopefully 2 or 3 open.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece I'm hearing in the conversations are, well, what is our metric now? Give me a metric, right? And it is difficult. And I think what's more difficult is that this is gray right now, where a lot of these people, their job performance, right? If we're working with a marketing director or a digital marketing manager, whoever it is that's managing search, or this search relationship, they are measured on things like traffic, and their job performance is measured on that. So me coming to them and saying, well, we need to shift and look at, brand visibility perhaps, or we need to think about this in a totally different way is really scary, I think, too, because we don't have tangible, or I'll have clients that say, well, what about this tool that I found that says that they can tell me exactly what the visibility is? And I have to tell them, I think they're wrong. Okay. There's absolutely no true reporting today. Like there's tools that like prompt ChatGPT every day 1 million times, but every prompt is different. Every response is different. So, it is just a space of gray right now, and we have to kind of lean into that gray, I think, a little bit more, which is not the easiest answer when we rely so heavily on analytics.
Yeah. Now, have results for your client stayed the same, decreased, or improved?
In terms of traditional search, we're finding the decreased click-through rates. If we were to take the same piece of content on its own, we're seeing decreased click-through as a result. But because of the nature of the campaigns that we're doing, from a content marketing sense, because of the compelling nature of that content, we're seeing wins elsewhere in terms of an increase in brand searches, referral traffic. We do media relations via, targeting specific journalists that have written on that particular topic, and social media. If the client is so inclined, a fraction of them will actually make videos from the different sections. So going back to Lindsay's point earlier, the new metrics are all of the non-search channels, not just the search. And in my opinion, it's always been the case. If your content is that good, it should have value beyond search. It can't be just for search, because if it's just for search, chances are it's incredibly formulaic and is likely to degrade in future updates,
Yeah, if you're doing SEO for an algorithm at this point, like you're going to fail, right? We are not in a space of, even in the conference we were at, where it's like, well, SEO is just like trying to game the system. And it's like, well, we are trying to understand how things function on a technical way, but it always comes down to providing good content and information to your users, right? Just doing good for who needs the information you're providing. I want to throw in something kind of interesting. I just did a review of all of our B2B clients, and I looked at clicks and impressions over the last 16 months, as far as, Google Search Console will allow. And we can see, like, right when AI overviews started to come in, and this is not taking ChatGPT into consideration, there was a pretty quick drop, right, in clicks. That click-through rate dropped. But in the last 60 days, there has been almost like a revitalization to what it was pre-AI overviews. And it's like, okay, is this because businesses are making buying decisions in Q1 and in Q3 and Q4 it was just down? Or is there now, yes, AI overviews are showing up more, but there is a greater distrust and people are then doing more clicking deeper into sites? Like, it was just this interesting bubble in the last, literally 6 weeks max, of that kind of bounce back where people are getting to sites more than they were maybe 6 months ago. It is interesting how things are changing so quickly, right? We can make assertions today, and maybe this gets published a week from now, and it could be different than what we're saying today. And that's how fast these things are happening.
I think, that's probably a reflection of Google teams doing constant iterations and experiments to, obviously, I would imagine the objective of their experimentation is to maximize Google Ads revenue.
Always.
Let's take a step back and talk about the nuts and bolts of search. What's really changed in how people discover information? First, we've got to get clear on what we mean by AI. A lot of people are lumping everything together, from ChatGPT to Google's AI overviews, but there are big differences in how they work and how users interact with them. With so many searches going zero click, and Lindsie, you mentioned this earlier, these days, it begs the question, is SEO still a growth channel or just a brand protection play at this point?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I absolutely believe that there is still growth opportunity in search. And I think the people that are pulling away from it long term are going to be really negatively impacted by assuming that search is just nothing anymore. But it is also a brand protection play. And I think SEO historically has been, well, brand is already kind of covered. Google always ranks your brand site first, at least majority of the time, where I think there is more of a brand protection play today than there ever has been, perhaps. But I think assuming that essentially the SEO is dead talk is not understanding that search is existing. It's just, it's expanding is really what's happening today.
Yeah. To use a really poor analogy, it's a bit like dance music. In the beginning, it was just dance music. And now we have house, garage, R&B, jungle, and many other varieties that my daughter would know about that I wouldn't. And so search is changing. And as we touched on before, to be successful at AI, you need to have the SEO basics. And so, search is growing, but it's also changing. It's perhaps fragmenting like dance music has. But there's an extension. I think the next wave will be agentic AI, where instead of us typing something in, it's almost like we have an LLM trained on our preferences, and it's rather than us going to AI, agentic AI will respond or monitor and look for opportunities in the background for what it is that we want and make suggestions. And so if you want to take advantage of that opportunity in the future era, you've absolutely got to get your SEO done and and to the point where it's good enough for LLM SEO or AEO or GEO.
Whatever the word you're using, whatever the acronym is, the initialization of
the acronym of whatever the acronym of the day is. There's a big future coming. It's already arrived now, but there's an even bigger future. So I don't think SEO is dead. I think if anything, what AI has done is it's foreshortened the requirement now to really do some proper good marketing, so that whatever you do is not just good for search, it's good beyond search with all the other channels like social media.
I do foresee in the near future like a consolidation of the SEO space, where there were a lot of agencies still selling, we're going to rewrite title tags and put meta keywords and these things that could be done at a low cost and at mass. And you're not going to get the return on those things that maybe you were able to even a few years ago. I think there's going to be a higher level of intelligence, experience, expertise needed for search to do it well, and trust in what's kind of real and what's just not going to work anymore.
Yeah, I would agree. I think in the 70s, not that I was alive then, they said that IT would destroy millions of jobs, but actually the opposite happened. It actually created millions, multi-millions of jobs. And I think AI will do the same thing. I think I remember managing someone for a supermarket account in the UK, and that person was manually, optimizing title tags, using a formula. We're now at the stage where, we can create we could create automated technology to actually rewrite tags on the fly in response to data as it comes in. And this can all be automated site-wide, and you can use edge technology on the cloud to actually implement it. So you don't even have to get the developers involved. It would just be like analyze, optimize, scheduled or implemented. And, it just releases the SEO specialist to do what we are all built to do, which is to be a lot more creative and intelligently respond to the data around us, to do perhaps more of the thinking and the understanding of the business requirement that the AI is not quite there ready to do. And if Elon Musk is right, then maybe we won't have that job either. We'll just be living on high income universal credit, or maybe not so high income, but who knows?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's 100 years away.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, indeed.
We're obviously seeing real change in how users interact with search. And you talked about that briefly earlier. People aren't just typing in one or multiple keywords. They're actually writing in questions or statements. And as a result, they're expecting thought out answers, not kind of a one word response. So let's unpack that shift. What was the traditional SEO search process, and how is that being disrupted by AI-powered tools?
I mean, it's interrupting every piece of that, right? So yeah, I'll step in with that one. And I think the thing is that's interesting, and how traditional searches, right, with your broad term and getting more specific, that is not natural human behavior. We don't talk like that. We don't start a conversation with one word and then get more specific. We were trained by how Google functioned to start broad and get specific. And now we're just talking as humans do rather than talking, even though I will say, when you start to get into ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity, we're just training ourselves to prompt, and prompting is still not entirely, okay, ChatGPT, you are a B2B manager that loves the outdoors. What would you do? You're still doing it. It's just thought in a different way, in a prompting way versus keyword specific.
It's certainly a lot more richer though, isn't it? Because it shows, it reflects our increased confidence in search technology that, we feel that we can give context, give a name, and then ask the question. Yes, there's a structure to it in order to, as you've pointed out, Lindsie, to get the best from that technology. But I think this when we think about the difference between what I call the 10 blue links era or traditional SEO or search and, the AI LLM era, I think what that means now is that there was this famous article by The Verge, how SEOs ruined the internet. And I have to say, with some heaviness in the heart, I believe that article is largely true. I mean, we've seen
disagree.
Quite an abuse of the ultimate guide to target keyword or topic, and then it will be an arms race to get an increased word count and do a +1 on whatever the top 5 articles we're doing, and include all the sections that just make sure you got more sections than everybody. And this is where we're getting to, and now thankfully I must say AI has kind of put a stop to that, because with AI, it's forced us to actually stop trying to produce content so that we're turning our clients into the Wikipedia of whatever it is they sell, and actually, like for example, if you've got a client that sells that does cybersecurity, right, and you're selling to a managed service provider, do they really want to read an article, what is ransomware, right? Well, no, of course not. So, but
they know what that is.
Exactly, they know what it is, but it's ridiculous. Traditional SEO has taken us to this point where we start writing content to please everybody. I think AI, especially when people say, I am an MSP and I want to know, now I think we're getting to an exciting, dare I say, era of producing content for the target buyer or the target audience, rather than trying to please everybody on the internet. One size fits all content now, in my opinion, and according to the data that I see, is not working anymore.
100%. I would just kind of put a pin in that for everybody to hear. Like, it is not creating content for the masses. It's creating content that matters. And I think it's really interesting, because as much as AI has benefited this in terms of our field, it's also been like the death of good content, because people are just churning out garbage with ChatGPT every day. I don't remember what the stat was, but it was just insane, the amount of new content that's being published every day because of the ability to write 2,000 words or 5,000 words on any topic you really want with ChatGPT in a couple clicks, which is why we have to move away from that, because more content isn't better anymore. Anybody can create just vast libraries of content overnight.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily, AI is allergic to content that is written as an output of a prompt. So AI written content, if you think about it, AI is training their models on discussions online. Okay. And so if AI was to come across content that was generated by an LLM, then it wouldn't want that, because it's a bit like taking a cassette copy of the original. Now, if you think of, AI being the cassette copy of the original, then LLM or AI written content is a cassette copy of the cassette copy. Now, if you're around in the 80s, which was the era in which I was born, then you would know that a cassette copy of a cassette copy has really, really poor sound quality. And, if we take time into account, you can only do it after you get the cassette copy of the source. So you're also late to the party. So, AI would fear that, and therefore would not reward that, because it doesn't want to pollute its models with low signal content or low value content.
Now, what we haven't talked about so far is intent. How are people using Google versus ChatGPT? Are they going there for the same reasons or completely different ones, Andreas?
I would say the intent would definitely be different, and a good test of that is when you look at the queries, the type of search results that Google returns, depending on the query. So if something's more informational, you're very likely to get an AI overview, whereas if you get something more transactional, Google's going to jump on that, hit it with a load of ads, and you won't see much in the way of AI overviews. Going back to the demand sphere statistic, that almost 50% of AI overviews. So I think Google's certainly pretty good in terms of determining the intent, and I think Lindsie would agree that the intent is probably a lot more on the informational research side of.
Well, I had a personal experience recently with this. Okay. So I really want to make sourdough. I'm like that. I feel like that middle-aged woman that now wants to make bread. It's terrible. But I need to know, like, what are all the tools I need? What's the best Dutch oven I can buy for this? What is this brand versus this brand? And doing a Google search to collect all of that is exhausting. So I had a conversation with ChatGPT about, build me a table comparing these brands. What's good for a beginner? What do I need to consider? And it helped me make that decision, and then went to Google and bought the product, right? I didn't buy it from ChatGPT. I didn't click on a link to a site. But what it did do is help educate me on the things I don't know anything about, but want to learn more about. And then I took that into Google and made a buying decision. So I think it is just a multimedia, approach to this. And I think ChatGPT or these AI tools are just better at certain pieces comparative to Google.
I mean, that's interesting. Could we see, and I'm pretty sure the AI tools will kind of hop on it at some point. And obviously you're just this is a feedback from one person, but could we see that people use AI tools more for information gathering because it's much quicker, right? You don't have to go to different sources on Google and then kind of read through it, write it down, etc., and then make the buying decision. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's already happening.
Yeah, tracking it is difficult. I mean, the attribution of that is tough to understand that process at this point, again, because we don't have really great reporting out of ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these. But I think, again, tying it back to a lot of the conversation we've already had today about that, if that informational piece is so easy to be fed, but then when you want to get deeper and really make decisions, you're going to go into traditional search and click into a website.
Now that we covered the current landscape, let's look forward. What should brands be thinking about when it comes to showing up in AI first discovery?
I think there's a lot of pieces to kind of play it here. And I think we'll kind of expand in different discussions here in terms of what to do next. But I think there is such an importance of understanding the market more than we ever have before, of who is your audience, what do they care about, what is the expertise that we are providing to the world, and then tailoring a strategy to those pieces. Do we have the structured data to support that? Are we providing the content? Is it accessible? Or do you have 8,000 blog posts and we need to do some pruning because there's just too much? So I think focusing in on who we're talking to, I had conversations this morning about, we need to stop talking about keywords. I don't care about search volume and keywords. Who are we talking to? And are we creating the proper content there? And I think that has to be the shift in brands is that who versus, a search volume number pulled from, SEMrush or Search Console or whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think keyword intelligence tools such as SEMrush and Ahrefs, they're not fit for the AI search era. So there goes my ambassadorship candidacy for those tools. Sorry, not sorry. but it's got to be said, they're not, because keywords don't tell you who's typing in, who's searching on those keywords. And AI is now intelligent, and people are searching in such a way where they're declaring who they are, their context in their searches. So to your point, Lindsie, I think you're absolutely correct. I think the brands that succeed today and tomorrow will be the ones that are gathering audience intelligence, seeing where the active discussions are happening online, doing the research. Because if you think about it, any tool that gives you those insights, and as long as it correlates very highly to what model findings would be of these LLMs and search engines, are going to perform extremely well, not just in AI, but also in traditional search. So it's going to be incredibly important to make sure that the content you do produce that is modeled on the sources online has a high confidence interval and a low margin of error. And so it's definitely a data scraping stroke combined with analysis, synthesizing those discussions among the target buyers, because keywords don't cut it anymore.
Yeah. And just to also just expand slightly, I think also we as SEOs need to leverage AI tools for our research. I think asking questions to ChatGPT, using Gemini, understanding what is coming back. I think there's we want to hold the expertise of looking at the keywords and understanding all these things. And we have to be open to using these tools as well, because that is where the data is held. And we can leverage this and be so powerful to use it instead of being afraid of it.
Again, SEO, there's or AEO and GEO, it's always been the way that there's a power law, right? That there's X trillion or X billion or millions of sites that are competing for a certain search term, but the very, very few can only be visible. And so I think if you're going to get ahead in AI search as well as traditional search, your research has to be proprietary. So it's got to be something that you can't easily replicate elsewhere on the web, and that is the winning driver in today's search environment and tomorrow's, I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, before we come to an end to today's episode, we can't forget to look at the bigger picture. Visibility today means more than just showing up on Google. How do channels like social media, YouTube, and even podcasts play into AI-driven discovery?
I mean, I think this is something that's actually, again, interesting. I had a conversation this morning about the fact that SEO is not just Google anymore. ChatGPT really takes social input, what is happening within forums, what is happening on social media, what is happening in websites. Like, all of these things matter, where we cannot have our blinders on and say, this is what's on our website and that's all that matters. And I mean, backlinks have always been a piece, but I think it has become a thing where it's not like we need to go out and get masses. It is more about, where are we collecting, credible content and information and assets here. Like, it has to be full media approach. We cannot, again, have these blinders of what's on our website and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that AI has foreshortened the requirement to raise the content bar. so that content's for your audiences. And if you're doing that, you're going to be successful in social media, video, newsletters, press, all of those things, because the value is intrinsically there. It's at the core of the content and of the premise of or intent of producing that content in the first place. It's because it's what your audiences care about. So, if you've got something that good, you're free from whatever the search engines throw at you. You really are.
Well, Lindsie, Andreas, thank you so much for joining me on the Performance Alert podcast and sharing your knowledge on AI versus search. Now, Andreas, if people want to find out more about you, about Artios, how can they get in touch? How can they find out more about your company?
Thank you, Steffen. So they can find me on LinkedIn if they type in my complicated spelt name.
There's always the information in the show notes.
Or they can just visit our website, artios.io, which hopefully will also be on the show notes. And thank you for having me.
Of course. And sorry for pronouncing your company's name more in a French way. I looked at it and I was like, it sounds like
I felt inspired, Maybe I'll cook something French this weekend.
Now, this was the first episode of a podcast series, AI versus Search, that Lindsie, Andreas, and I will record. The way how we want to move forward is we want to collect information from the community, from our clients, from our partners, and really see what do they hear, what concerns do they have, where do you look for answers. So we will create the following episodes depending on what we hear from our community after releasing this episode. So look out for episode 2, 3, 4, and I don't know how many there will come after that. Other than that, thanks everyone for listening. If you like the Performance Delivered podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast application. If you want to find out more about Symphonic Digital and want to talk to Lindsie about SEO and how we can potentially help you with that, you can visit us at symphonicdigital.com or follow us on Twitter. On X actually, at Symphonic HQ. Thanks again and see you next time.
Performance Delivered is sponsored by Symphonic Digital. Discover audience-focused and data-driven digital marketing solutions for small and medium businesses at symphonicdigital.com.